about the importance which has now been attached to the Prime Minister's Australia visit. Now, this is something very significant because the Prime Minister is about to conclude his Australia visit, but a statement that was made during the talks with his Australian counterpart, that seems to have sparked a buzz. We are talking about Australia's IT and social media regulations, in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi also had an opinion saying that India has a lot to learn from Australia. And this remark, which has also fueled a lot of speculation over whether the government of India could also be hinting at similar regulations for social media and digital platforms in the near future, because let's tell you exactly what has now been said or suggested by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, speaking with his Australian counterpart when it comes to creating accounts on social media for children under the age of 16. Now, just not Australia, we're looking at other countries as well across the world who seems to be, taking an example out of this, saying that parental consent is something which is a must and cannot grant permission to anyone who is below the age of 16. However, there will be no penalty for users bypassing the age verification, also including platforms which are widely used in circulated content that includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, Snapchat, Reddit, and even on YouTube, which are certain of those platforms that would be included. The other ones who could be excluded would be, messaging applications such as WhatsApp, and there are other messaging applications that can be also used for education and health purposes as well. Google, and when it comes to your age verification platforms, that would be using your age assurance and technical and facial age estimation and third-party tokens as well. So this is now being said that this could be an example that could be taken up by the government of India. So while Prime Minister Narendra Modi was speaking at the Australia-India Annual Leaders Summit in Melbourne, he had praised Australia's approach when it comes to information technology, regulation and online safety, particularly the measures that have been undertaken when it comes to safeguarding children from harmful effects of social media. So what is that, Akansha? Good morning. Of course, other countries are also taking the cue, but what can India learn from this?
Oh, absolutely. This, as Prime Minister Modi just yesterday, in fact, lauded Australia's efforts. And as you rightly highlighted, it's not just Australia. Even Britain has announced a ban on social media. In fact, India's IT ministry has also commissioned officers to learn the best digital practices from other countries. That also includes Singapore and Denmark. So more importantly, this year has been full of this entire chatter. Neither Karnataka nor Andhra Pradesh have tabled a draft law in their respective legislatures. But remember, these state governments are also moving to announce their own respective social media policies. So yes, what Prime Minister Modi said yesterday was also on expected lines, because remember, IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav had confirmed that these discussions are already underway. This was during a press conference at the AI Summit, I remember, in February this year. So Prime Minister, by lauding Australia's ban on social media access for teenagers, has also given a big clear indication for our own country that yes, perhaps the union government could very much be mulling over similar curbs. When he went on to say that he's been following Australia very closely and the way they have legislated and worked.
So could be a hint, what's upcoming as far as Prime Minister Modi's remark comes in, as Australia is also moving ahead with one of the world's toughest social media regulations that require major platforms to prevent users from under the age of 16 from creating their accounts on social media. Can't I request you to stay on with us, because the Prime Minister, as he is wrapping up his Australia visit, now the third and the last leg of this visit would be to New Zealand. So let's talk about, as far as when he begins with his New Zealand visit, this is going to be his first visit to the country since taking office, and also trade and defense that are expected to dominate the agenda, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be holding talks with his New Zealand counterpart. So let's exactly get you what's on the table when it comes to this crucial bilateral meeting between the two sides. Of course, the FTA follow-up, the trade push. Then when it comes to trade and also defense and security relations, we're also looking at business and sports personalities that they are also going to meet up. And the diaspora event is also something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be highlighting and would be participating. So Akansha, coming back to you on that, because when we speak of Prime Minister's scheduled visit to New Zealand, and Christopher Luxon, he would be meeting as far as the New Zealand Prime Minister, what has been the main highlights? Because this is something, that tariff-free trade deal is something that would deliver a major boost to both sides.
Absolutely. In fact, this is a historic visit for India, because this is the first Indian Prime Minister visiting New Zealand in the last 40 years. So yes, it is historic, and apart from being historic, it is also one that will be also hinging on a lot of trade discussions, because do not forget that earlier this year in April itself, both the countries signed and formalized their FTA. Yes, it is yet to be ratified in the New Zealand Parliament, but we are also being told that 57% of New Zealand's exports to India are now going to get tariff-free, as Prime Minister Lakson has already announced just ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit. In fact, he had taken to X to make that announcement that New Zealand businesses are set to boom with India trade deal. And Prime Minister is also arriving in Auckland. Security is also going to be one concern. We are being told that Prime Minister's security is at the highest levels if we were to compare his other two tours to Indonesia and Australia, and if you were to compare it to, say, New Zealand. Why? Because there has been this Khalistani threat of protests to be organized in Auckland. We, as at here at Times Now, had also asked the Ministry of External Affairs if they want to take up this matter and this issue of the Khalistani menace in New Zealand.
During his stay in Auckland, the Prime Minister is also scheduled to hold bilateral talks with his Australian counterpart, as I said, and will also be reviewing the full spectrum of the ties between the two countries. Thank you, Akansha, for joining us here on the broadcast. Of course, we'll be staying updated on the developments that are now taking place as far as Prime Minister's visit is concerned. In the meantime, we head into a sport.